Jake Gyllenhaal might be joining the Spider-Man universe as a pretty silly character with a weird backstory. So it looks like the rumor is right now that Jake Gyllenhaal is in talks to play Mysterio. So Mysterio is a character that people have been lobbying for a bit. I think people wanted Bruce Campbell to play him back in the day.
Yeah.
Just because he kept showing up in Spider-Man's
Right,
adventures.
back when Sam Raimi was directing the Spider-Man movies and Bruce Campbell would show up in pretty much anything Raimi would do.
Yeah. You know, I think Bruce Campbell will show up in a lot of things in general.
Sure.
If you ask him. But he's an interesting character. He's part of the Sinister Six.
Right, one of the founding members, right?
But
right, and so he doesn't really have superpowers. He is a guy who he's a special effects artist. And so his whole way of getting back at Spider-Man or doing whatever is I love, one of the stories is he makes Spider-Man thinks he's just a few inches tall.
Oh no.
Right? Or he caused Spider-Man to doubt his own sanity by posing as Spider-Man and committing crimes that left Peter wondering if he had multiple personalities.
Is that where that famous meme picture from the old Spider-Man cartoon series of two Spider-Mans pointing at each other?
Oh, I don't know, maybe. Maybe. What's fun about Mysterio, though, is that you can tell it's like one of those 60s villains. Like, you look at him and his color scheme is green and purple, which back in the day, like, green and purple was for bad guys, and blue and red. And
so he looks ridiculous. He has a fishbowl helmet.
Right.
He's jacked. I wish he would wear a codpiece. And he has a purple cape.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, this could be interesting. They could do it right. I mean, this is not the first time we've seen a movie. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's an old movie from the late 80s called FX, which is Brian, I can't remember the guy's last name, but it's about this special effects artist that gets hired by the FBI to help stage a murder for somebody that's gonna go into protective custody, but then the FBI turns on him, and then there's a sequel, and so he uses all his special effects skills to get back at everybody, but he's the hero in this. It's the guy that was the older mentor in Cocktail, and the Australian Brian, I'm blanking on his last name at the moment.
I'm sure we will be told by the people watching.
But Mysterio could be a cool character.
He could go a few different ways. I mean, he can be silly, but Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada wrote a story for him that kind of changed how people viewed Mysterio. He, at one point, wasn't into Spider-Man's clone and wanted a more worthy opponent, so he went after Daredevil. And in that, he did a bunch of messed up things, like frame Foggy for murder, convince Karen she had HIV, convince Daredevil, Matt Murdock, that a baby was the Antichrist, and eventually Matt Murdock told him in so many words, you're not special, and Mysterio killed himself.
Yeah, what I'd like in this is, I'd like to actually have it stay relatively small stakes, right? Like, one of the things I think that did really well in Homecoming was that you really got the sense of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And I think that Mysterio could serve that purpose. It doesn't need to be some giant, it doesn't need to be a big enough heist that you start wondering okay, where's Iron Man and where's everybody else? So I think that Mysterio is enough of a kind of silly villain, right? And look, Spider-Man's got plenty of silliness.
No, not the pumpkin glider, the goblin glider.
Right, I mean, even even Green Goblin, but there's some goofball, Rocket Racer, I think was one. There was the guy with the rocket skateboard and.
Cool.
Yeah.
Radical.
Exactly.
Well, Michael Keaton does seem to be coming back in some capacity. What's interesting is Vulture seemed to have a conscience and have at least a foot in reality, despite being a man with giant vulture wings trying to steal for his family. You could sense he had a bit of nobleness to him, and he had a bit of decency to him despite it all.
Right, I mean, you see that this is a guy who, he's trying to get his piece of, this alien technology and make some money, and when Damage Control shows up and takes all the stuff those guys are salvaging, he's pissed, and arguably rightly so. So you see that he's not gone completely round the bend, right? He's not.
You can sympathize or empathize with him at the very least. Right. You see his wife and his daughter, and
he's no Thanos.
No, Thanos, who kind of took the conservation thing way, way, way too far.
Right.
This is going to be coming out sometime in 2019. I would assume after the next Avengers movie. No spoilers will be mentioned here, but yeah, that's coming up soon. I think there's no title as of yet, but I'm looking forward to see what Jake Gyllenhaal does with this character. If he goes crazy, if he goes, relatable like the Vulture. Audience, what do you think will happen? Which storyline will they take over? Please let us know your thoughts on Facebook and Twitter.